Greetings, inhabitants of the mortal realms. In the eerie lands of Shyish, where the veil between life and death is lifted, ancient kingdoms lie undisturbed, and legions of the undead march to the commands of their necromantic masters. Vampire lords and ladies are driven by their insatiable hunger for power, blood, and eternal domination. Cover your necks and sharpen your stakes as we delve into the crimson embrace of the Soulblight Gravelords Spearhead. Hello everyone and welcome back to Coffee Hammer. My name is Darren and we are taking a look at the Soulblight Gravelords Bloodcrave Hunt Spearhead for Age of Sigmar. This box contains a force of unyielding skeletons and bloodthirsting vampires ready to bite and tear into their prey. In this comprehensive review, we'll break down the models, the gameplay, the value, and all aspects in between to help you decide if this Spearhead is the right choice for you. For those new to the channel or new to Spearhead, Spearhead is a new game format to Age of Sigmar, designed for fast, fun, and balanced games using a single self-contained box of miniatures. The game focuses on the core rules and simplifies the advanced mechanics by integrating them directly into unit abilities or unique battle tactic cards, making it an excellent entry point for new players, offering a less overwhelming start to the hobby. With the pleasantries out of the way, let's sink our teeth into the review. The Soulblight Gravelords Bloodcrave Hunt Spearhead contains 33 miniatures. You have 1 Vampire Lord, 5 Blood Knights, 20 Death Rattle Skeletons with 4 Gravestone Markers, and 3 Vargheists, which can alternatively be built as Crypt Horrors or Crypt Flayers. These models look fantastic and are all relatively new. First released back in May 2021, with the exception of the Vargheist models. These hideous looking creatures of the night came out back in 2012. When it comes to building and customization, the Death Rattle Skeletons are built into 2 units of 10 warriors, with options for a champion and a standard bearer. The champions have a choice of 4 different weapon options, while the regular Death Rattle Skeletons can be equipped with either a spear or a sword. The same goes with the Blood Knights. There are options for a champion and a standard bearer, and the rest with lances or blades. This is great for expressing how you want your army to look, as the weapons you choose to arm your models don't affect their abilities in the game. If you want one unit of skeletons with spears, while the others to have swords, you can totally do that. Unfortunately, the Vampire Lord and Vargheist have very little customization, but don't worry, this is a great opportunity to kit bash different weapons, heads, or other additions. When kit bashing your Vampire Lord, you can maybe use a different sword or head option from the Blood Knight kit, or even use wings from the arms of a Vargheist. So how do they play? Well, first thing we need to do is cover deployment and battle traits. For deployment, you have Death Descent. Your Vargheist unit is not set up during the deployment phase. Instead, from the 3rd battle round onwards, it can use the following ability: Swoop Down. In your movement phase, set up this unit anywhere on the battlefield more than 6 inches away from all enemy units. These guys are fast and surprisingly quite fighty, but we'll look into them in more detail later on. Your army's battle trait is a passive ability called the Hunger. Each time a friendly vampire unit uses a fight ability, after all of its attacks has been resolved, heal X to that vampire unit, where X is the number of damage points allocated by those attacks. This is a fantastic passive for all your vampires, which include your Vampire Lord, your Blood Knights, and your Vargheists. The ability resolves after your vampire unit fights, not at the end of combat. So for example, if your vampire is damaged then fights, they heal after you've resolved the combat attacks. Simple and easy to understand. But in a different scenario in which your vampire unit is not damaged, they fight, deal some damage, then they get attacked back and are allocated damage points. You then cannot heal those damage points retroactively. You have to wait until the next turn for that vampire unit to use a fight ability and heal those damage points back. Healing also does not mean you can return slain models. So for example, let's say your unit of Blood Knights get attacked and suffer 5 points of damage. One model is slain and 2 damage points are allocated to that unit. Your Blood Knights fight back and deal 5 damage to the enemy unit. Your Blood Knights can only heal the 2 damage points it has and cannot return a slain Blood Knight. Other than that, the Hunger is both thematically resonating and a powerful ability, letting your vampire unit stay in the fight for longer. Before we look at the regiment abilities and enhancements, let's examine the unit's Warscrolls. First up, your general is a vampire lord. He moves 6 inches with 5 health and 3+ save. He also has a ward of 6+ and a control value of 2. FYI, all your units have a 6-up ward save. He carries a dynastic war relic that is a melee weapon that has 5 attacks, hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s, Ren 1, damage 2. Very solid infantry hero with decent attacks and survivable with that 3+ armor save and 6+ ward. But also remember that every time he fights, he heals equal to the damage he deals, so even more durable. Not only that, but he is also a wizard with a spell ability, Vile Transference. In your hero phase, declare pick a visible enemy unit within 6 inches of this unit to be the target, then make a casting roll of 2d6, so fairly short range. Effect: on a 6+, roll a number of dice equal to the target's health characteristic. For each 5+, inflict 1 mortal damage on the target and heal 1 to this unit. This spell is great against other heroes with at least 5 or more health. It won't be very effective against regular units with 1 or 2 health, as you'd be only rolling 1 or 2 dice to get that 5+. But against something like an enemy hero with 5 health, you roll 5 dice, and for each 5+, you inflict 1 mortal damage on the target. Heroes are typically between 5 to 7 health, with some going even higher like the Seraphon Carnosaur that has 14 health. Your Vampire Lord is an exceptional hero, great in combat, and has a useful close range spell against any unit that has high health characteristic and can heal after he fights. Next, let's take a look at the Blood Knights. This is a cavalry unit of 5 that can move 10 inches with 3 health each on a 3+ save and a 6+ ward and a control characteristic of 1. They charge into combat with their Templar Lancers or Blades that have 3 attacks each, hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s, Ren 1, damage 1 with the charge +1 damage weapon ability. The Nightmare Steeds they ride on have 3 attacks each, hitting on 5s, wounding on 3s, no Ren, damage 1. These Blood Knights are crazy good cavalry. Their 3+ armor save and 6+ ward with the Hunger ability makes them a challenge for your opponent to destroy. You really need them to charge to get the most out of them in combat with their charge +1 damage weapon ability, so keep these guys safe from enemy charges. Their passive ability, Riders of Ruin, allows each model in this unit pass across enemy infantry models as if they had fly. This is very useful for charging over screening infantry and getting into your opponent's own cavalry or support units. Note that it lets you pass across enemy infantry as if this unit had fly, so they still can't fly over terrain and they can't end a normal move ability in the combat range of enemy units. When you do eventually get these guys into combat, they have a max total of 15 attacks with damage 2 on the charge. Very strong. Even the steeds have 3 attacks each, which is 50% more than other cavalry units that only have 2 attacks. Your Blood Knights will be doing a lot of the heavy hitting in the army until your Vargheists descend into battle. Speaking of which, Vargheists are a unit of 3 flying infantry vampires. They move 12 and have 4 health each on a 5+ save. They also have 6-up ward save and a control characteristic of 1. Their murderous fangs and talons have 3 attacks each in combat, hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s, Ren 1 damage 2 with a crit 2 hits weapon ability. You can set this unit up in your movement phase from the 3rd battle round onwards, anywhere on the battlefield more than 6 inches away from all enemy units. So you can effectively get these guys exactly where you want them, maybe behind enemy lines to take an objective, or block off the escape route and stop an enemy unit from retreating in their turn. The 6 inches away is not too far for a successful charge roll. You can't move these guys after you set them up with the swoop down ability, so the only way to get into combat in the same turn is to roll a 6 or more with the charge roll. These guys can really tear up an enemy unit, especially if that unit is damaged. They have a passive ability, the Scent of Gore. This ability gives them the effect, add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made by this unit that target a damaged unit. This ability is very powerful, making your Vargheists hitting on 4s and wounding on 2s. the target has to be damaged in order for them to get that +1 to wound rolls. So a damaged unit is a unit that has any damage points allocated to them, but it does not include slain models. So if Vargheists are fighting against, let's say, some regular steel helms that have a few slain models, your Vargheists do not get +1 to wound because the steel helms do not have any damage points allocated to them. But if the Vargheists are fighting a unit of Cavaliers that have a slain model and has 1 damage point allocated to them, the Vargheists can sense the gore and get that +1 to wound rolls against them. With crit 2 hits and +1 to wound rolls, your Vargheists can finish off the biggest Tree Lord or Carnosaur, even though they have that pretty poor 5+ armor save. And finally, rounding off the army are 2 units of 10 Death Rattle Skeletons. These infantry soldiers can move 4 inches with 1 health each on a 5+ armor save. They have that familiar 6+ ward save and a control characteristic of 1. They lumber into combat with their ancient weapons that have 2 attacks each, hitting on 4s, wounding on 4s, no rend, damage 1. Compared to your other vampires, your Death Rattle Skeletons are not going to be dishing out the damage. They have a slightly below average defense with that 5+ armor save, but they do have that 6+ ward. But they really have a fun and thematic ability called Skeleton Legion. You use this ability in your combat phase, so before any fight abilities happen, for each slain model from this unit, make a Legion roll of a d6. For each 5+, return 1 slain model to this unit. This ability is pretty wild. As long as you have 1 model remaining, you always have a chance to return slain models to this unit. You roll 1 dice for each slain model, so if you have 9 slain models, you roll 9 dice, and for each 5+, you return a slain model. This is only in your combat phase, so there is a chance for them to be completely destroyed. The obvious role of this unit is being a nuisance. The threat of returning slain models to a unit will force your opponent to decide between 2 choices. Either they completely ignore them, which means you can use them at their full strength every turn in combat. 20 attacks with no rend, damage 1 can spike at times, especially when you have 2 units of them. Or your opponent has to fully commit to destroying them, which lets your Vampire Lord and Blood Knights attack at their full strength. Your Death Rattle Skeletons are solid infantry units. March them up the battlefield and swamp your enemies with 20 recurring skeletons. Now that we know what the units do, let's look at the 2 choices for Regiment Abilities. You pick one of these after deciding who is the attacker and who is the defender, and before deployment. First choice is Endless Legions, a once per battle your movement phase ability. Declare, pick a friendly Death Rattle Skeleton unit that has been destroyed. The effect, you can set up a replacement unit with d6 plus 4 models anywhere on the battlefield more than 6 inches from all enemy units. This is a superb ability that lets you return one of your destroyed Death Rattle Skeleton units. They don't have the reinforcement ability, so this is the only way you can return them once they are destroyed. The replacement unit has d6 plus 4 models, so you will need to roll a d6 and add 4 to the roll, which means you can get a minimum of 5 skeletons back, or up to a maximum of 10. However many you bring back, that is now considered a replacement unit with that many models. So for example, if you roll a 3, you have a replacement unit with 7 models, not a replacement unit with 10 models and 3 slain models. This is important as you only make Skeleton Legion rolls for slain models in a unit. The other regiment ability is called Ruinous Charges. In any charge phase, declare, pick your Blood Knights to use this ability if it charged this turn. So you need to charge with your Blood Knights first in your turn, or you would have used a command on a Battle Tactics card in order to charge in your opponent's turn. The effect, inflict d3 mortal damage on each enemy unit passed across during that charge ability. This is a decent charge ability that gets some mortal damage off before your Blood Knights start attacking. It has to target enemy units your Blood Knights passed across, so we're talking about infantry units. This is strong against enemy infantry heroes as well, possibly doing d3 mortal damage to them. Both abilities are decent and really supports aggressive playstyle, either pushing your skeletons up the board and letting one of your units get destroyed, or charging in with your Blood Knights and dealing some mortal damage. If I had to choose, I would personally choose Endless Legions more often, as I just like the fun of bringing more skeletons back from the grave. And finally, for your enhancements, you can give your general one of the following: Grave Sand Shard. A once per battle reaction, you declare the Skeleton Legion ability for a unit within 9 inches of your general. The effect: add 1 to each Legion roll made for that unit. This is quite a spicy ability that can make a significant impact, or it can do nothing at all. How it works is, in your combat phase, one of your Death Rattle skeletons declares its Skeleton Legion ability. Your general is within 9 inches of that unit and uses this enhancement as a reaction. You have to react before you make the Legion rolls for the Death Rattle skeleton unit, so you can't make the Legion rolls then decide to react with the Grave Sand Shard. The enhancement also only works on one unit, so your second Death Rattle unit won't benefit from this. It's fun, but not very reliable and requires some setup to be effective. For the next enhancement is Cloud of Bats, a once per battle ability in your movement phase. You remove your general from the battlefield and set them up again anywhere on the battlefield more than 6 inches from all enemy units. This is a neat little teleport ability that lets your Vampire Lord pretty much teleport anywhere you want him to be. You can also use this to get your Vampire Lord out of combat if he's in a bit of a pinch. The Vampire Lord can't move after you use this ability, but you can still charge with him in your charge phase. This is a nice utility ability that has many different applications in game. This is the enhancement I would pick so far. Let's see what the other two have to offer. Aura of Night. This enhancement is a passive ability. You ignore negative modifiers to save rolls for shooting attacks that target your general. This is a very specific enhancement that is good against other shooting units. There aren't too many shooting units in Spearhead so far. Most armies are combat focused, and your general can gain the Guarded Hero passive special rule. Guarded Hero is a passive that your hero gains if they are within the combat range of a friendly unit that is not a hero. You subtract 1 from hit rolls for shooting attacks that target this hero. Plus, if this hero is infantry, which your Vampire Lord is, they cannot be picked as the target of shooting attacks made by models more than 12 inches from them. So to me, Aura of Night seems to be an extra protection for your general that isn't really required, because you have ways to nullify enemy units via Guarded Hero special rule or just engaging those shooter units in combat. If you do give the Vampire Lord this enhancement, your opponent will just shoot your other units instead. I think this enhancement is pretty weak and I won't be picking it, even against other shooting units. And for the final enhancement, it's a spell ability, Spirit Gale. You use this in your hero phase, you make a casting roll of 2d6 and on a 7+, inflict 1 mortal damage on each enemy unit on the battlefield. This is a pretty powerful spell that can do lots of mortal damage to your enemy units. Although it's only 1 mortal damage to each enemy unit, it adds up. If your opponent has 4 units on the battlefield, that will be a total of 4 mortal damage. With enemy units damage, this is a perfect combo with your Vargeist passive, which gives them +1 to wound rolls for attacks that target a damaged unit. You don't have to give up your general's Warscroll spell ability too, so you can do both. There are a total of 4 battle rounds, so your general has 4 opportunities to use Spirit Gale over the course of the game. This is one of the better enhancements and a top contender alongside Cloud of Bats. If I had to choose which one is the best enhancement, I would put Cloud of Bats above Spirit Gale. Both are good, but I feel that the once per battle teleport anywhere outside of 6 inches of enemy units is too strong to pass. The strength of the Spearhead is in its exceptional durability and resilience. Death Rattle skeletons are your core target unit and can return slain models with their Skeleton Legion ability, which makes them incredibly frustrating for your opponent to fully clear and excellent at hoarding objectives. All your vampires can heal after they fight via the Hunger battle trait, giving them extra sustain in extended engagements. Blood Knights and Vargeist are your heavy hitters, dishing out a lot of damage, especially on the charge when it comes to Blood Knights. The Vampire Lord is also a solid combat hero who can dish out the damage against other heroes and can heal himself through the Hunger and Vile Transference abilities. The sheer resilience and number of Death Rattle skeletons, coupled with their ability to return slain models, makes them excellent at hoarding objectives. the mobility of the Blood Knights and Vargheist allow them to contest and seize distant objectives effectively as well. When it comes to weaknesses, you have limited ranged attacks. This is the most significant weakness. You have no shooting attacks, which means you must get into combat to deal the damage. You're very reliant on charges as well. Blood Knights are formidable on the charge. However, if they fail to get a charge off, or they get bogged down in combat, their damage output suffers significantly. A strong opponent will try to minimize a Blood Knight's charge with effective screens. Another weakness is the mobility of the skeletons. Your Death Rattle skeletons are slow with a movement of 4 inches. This can be challenging against fast units or other shooting units that can dictate the engagement range. Despite the weaknesses, the Soulblight Gravelords Bloodcrave Hunt excels at a relentless grinding advance. Use your Death Rattle skeletons to screen your more valuable units, target enemy threats, and hold objectives. Position your Vampire Lord to support those skeletons and engage enemy heroes or other key units. Then unleash your Blood Knights and eventually your Vargheist on priority targets, focusing on units that can be crippled or destroyed in a single charge. Leverage your regeneration abilities to outlast your opponent and control the battlefield. Let's crunch some numbers. The current retail price of the Bloodcrave Hunt Spearhead is £87.50. If you were to buy each individual kit separately, the Vampire Lord is £20.50, Blood Knights are £44, Vargheist are £37, and a box of 20 Death Rattle skeletons are £40, which brings the total cost to £141.50. Buying the Spearhead box instead of each unit separately will save you £54. That's a fantastic discount of 38%, which is a great way to get into the hobby without breaking the bank. When it comes to hobbying, the models are relatively straightforward and have a lot of customization. Blood Knights have 2 different head options as well as lances or blades, while the skeletons can choose between spears or rusty swords. Unfortunately, the Vampire Lord is a single pose with a mace and no other options, but this is an opportunity for you to kit bash a different weapon if you have a spare from the Blood Knights kit. Are the models fun to paint? Yes, you can really get creative with the different color schemes and really familiarize yourself with different painting techniques. The skeletons really lend themselves to contrast paints and you can get a really cool effect like weathering and rust. The armor for the Blood Knights are traditionally depicted in red, but any color on these wicked vampires will still look amazing. If you're thinking of upgrading from Spearhead to match play, this Spearhead box is a fantastic start towards collecting a 2000 points army. The Death Rattle skeletons are a solid core of any Soulblight army, with the Blood Knights being a staple cavalry hammer unit. Vargheist are useful, but not an auto pick for competitive play, as is the Vampire Lord, but it doesn't mean that they are bad. You can do pretty well even if you include them in your army. Expanding upon the Spearhead, I will recommend getting a Mortarch like Neferata or Manfred. They are both powerful wizards that are strong in combat and support the rest of your army with their unique abilities. If you like the playstyle of Blood Knights, you can get some more of them and maybe pick up the beautiful new Prince Vordry, Lord of the Crimson Keep. This magnificent vampire on Revenant Draconeth is pretty intimidating both on the tabletop and to hobby. The wider Soulblight Gravelords army is deep and expansive with different themes and playstyle. You can go heavy on vampires with Blood Knights and Prince Vordry, or maybe you prefer your undead to have no skin and flesh. You can have legions of Death Rattle skeletons, Barrow Guard and Barrow Knights. Or how about a more classic army with necromancers raising a sea of zombies and direwolves to swarm your enemies? Whichever direction you decide to take the army, there are units and army abilities to support that playstyle. The Soulblight Gravelords Bloodcrave Hunt Spearhead is an outstanding box that offers fantastic looking models at a significant discount. It is strong yet fun army to play and experience in Spearhead. An excellent starting point for anyone looking to get into Age of Sigmar, and I highly recommend it. And there we have it. What are your thoughts on the Bloodcrave Hunt Spearhead? Do you play Soulblight Gravelords or are you thinking of getting this box? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you found this review helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe for more Age of Sigmar and Spearhead content. Thanks for watching and I'll see you all on the battlefield.